Hey, Seth here with BlenderSensei.com. Today we're taking a look at another sweet free add-on that comes bundled with Blender called Stored Views. You can activate this add-on by going to Edit, Preferences, click Add-ons, and then you can find it right here up at the top. Just click that to activate it. We can see it tells us under Location that it is located in the 3D view, the sidebar, in the View menu, in Stored Views. All right, so let's close that out. Okay, so similar to the Measure It add-on, you have an Initialize button, which basically gets the show started. I normally wouldn't have this menu out so far, but for the purposes of this video, let's go ahead and pull this out so we can, so the viewers at home can read everything clearly. All right, so this add-on is very straightforward. If you want to save a view so you can get back to it, you press Save Current, and that saves your view. This also provides us with a nice little field here for renaming the view. So since this is Blender's default view, we could just call this default view and say we move away, do something else. We can always get back to it by pressing this little icon. We could make another one. We could say if we always wanted to view from underneath, that wasn't quite an orthographic view there. We could come here, press Save Current, and we'll call this Under View. So now we have these two different views we can hop between, and say we wanted a very scaled back far away view. We could make another view, save current, and call this far away. So I think the intended purpose of this POV setting is that when you have the add-on set to POV, and when you press save current, it's supposed to also save information about if you are in a local view or you are in a perspective, as we are now, versus an orthographic view. Unfortunately, it doesn't really seem to work how it's supposed to. I don't know if that's due to a bug or some potential thing I'm missing. The only difference that I notice when creating a view in view versus POV is that if you do create a view while in POV mode in orthographic, while you're in an orthographic view, such as a random user orthographic view like this, or a specific one like right, back, top, etc., is that you will get a different icon. You'll get a flat icon versus this cube icon. But the actual view gets stored the same whether you are in view or POV. Only if you save your view in view mode, you don't get the special little icon. If we change this to POV, and we save a random view, press Save Current. It does very similar to if we were in view mode. We can navigate away and then quickly get back to it. If we switch to an orthographic view, such as front orthographic, and press Save Current, notice how this icon is flat, indicating we're in orthographic and not a perspective view like this. So we could call this front ortho. But the issue with this is that if we say navigate from here and then click this button, notice that it seems to move us to the technical rotation values of front orthographic, but it doesn't switch us into, I don't know, Blender's special mode for front orthographic. So it's not actually registered by Blender, and we don't get to see the grid or anything. And this is the same thing that happens if we create a similar view in view mode. So we'll make another one, or let's do the front orthographic again, but this time in view mode. We'll press Save Current. We'll call this front ortho again. Notice we don't get the special icon, and if we move away, the same thing happens. So it seems to function exactly the same whether you're in view or POV mode. So another thing that I would have assumed, since the POV mode is supposed to save if you're in a local view versus a non-local view, what a local view is that it will hide everything but whatever you have selected and then zoom in on those objects. So say we were to add a couple monkey heads here, and we wanted a view that only showed these two objects. We could go to View, Toggle Local View, and notice that we can't see anything else because it's been hidden in this local view. And I think the point here, or at least in the documentation, is it's supposed to remember that data, that remember that you're in a local view and save that. So if we were to press save current, we could call this local cube and monk. And presumably clicking on a different view that was not saved in a local view should jump us out of that view, but it does not. And if we were to press view, local view, toggle local view again, or we could just use the hotkey and then press this button to get back, you would think that that would reactivate the local view, but no such luck. So if you want to delete a view, you can press X to delete a view. I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of our POV views and click back into our views. If you want to update a view, so say we hop into our far away view we made and we decided, you know what, the far away needs to be a lot more farther away. We could zoom out a little bit more. And to update that view, we just press this button here. And now you can see if I navigate away and then press this, the view has been updated to our much farther away view. So this is a handy button here. What this will do is hop us into the active camera and also set the active camera to whatever your view screen is. So if we press camera to view, we are now inside the camera and the camera's view has become what we are looking at. We can also easily create new cameras that save our views. So we could new camera to view here, hop out, then new camera to view here. Then we could click these buttons to switch between our camera views. And these buttons here will create camera markers. To demonstrate that, we're going to go ahead and make a fun little scene here and animate it and see how we can do some cool stuff with these camera markers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start with a new scene here. I'm going to click File, New, click General, don't save. So I'm going to delete that cube, Shift A, add a UV sphere, and this is actually going to be Earth. So I'm going to scale Earth up a little. And we're going to Object, Shade Smooth. Then I'm going to duplicate this because I want to create a moon. And of course, this is all perfectly to scale and according to strict NASA guidelines. To make it easier to spin my moon around my Earth, I'm going to press Shift A and under Curve, add a circle, S to scale that up, and I want it going right in the center of that moon, so that I can click on the moon, shift click on my circle, and press Control P to parent it, and then press Object. And now the moon is parented to this circle. So whatever I do to the circle also happens to the moon, especially rotating it, which is what we're most interested in right here. Okay, so what would be cool is if, and I'll open the stored views back up here. What would be cool is if we had a camera from Earth looking at the moon. So I'm just going to navigate my view over here and I'm going to press New Camera. Then I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel in so I can zoom in a little bit better here. And then when I go to navigate, I hop out of that camera view. Unfortunately, you can't rename the cameras here like you can easily rename the views, but you can do that easily enough within the outliner. So we can come over to this new camera we made and call it Earth to Moon. And now whenever we want to hop inside Earth to Moon, we just click that. Great. Likewise, let's make a moon looking at the Earth view. By the way, I currently have Orbit Around Selected activated in the preferences. I highly recommend this preference if you don't already have that set. So you can set that by going to Edit, Preferences, and then Navigation, and make sure Orbit Around Selection is checked there. It makes doing everything in Blender a lot easier. Okay, let's zoom in on our moon and make a moon to Earth cam here. So we'll press New Camera. That makes us a moon to earth camera here. Let's rename that in the outliner, moon to earth. Now we can quickly click these buttons here to hop between our two planetary views. Nice. So I want to be able to rotate this easily, but right now if I just press R, I won't be able to do that unless I press some more hotkeys. So to avoid having to do that, let's click open the Item tab. And what we can do is, since we only want to be able to rotate the Z-axis here, we can lock these other two axes. And when we do, now in the viewport, whenever I press R, and if I have this circle selected, my moon will only rotate like this, which is exactly what I want. It's also a nice visual aid, since my dumb brain can't quickly remember that Z is the one I want to rotate if I'm rotating it manually here in this menu. All right, so it's not much use to have a camera planted on the moon if it just gets left in orbit whenever the moon moves. So let's click on this moon to earth camera, then shift click on our moon and press Control P again to parent that camera to the moon. And now, since that's parented to the moon and the moon is parented to the circle, whenever I rotate the circle, everything will move. Sweet. We could actually hop back into the moon to earth view, and if I select the actual circle that we created and press R, you can see I'm actually rotating in the 3D view. It's a little bit awkward from here, so maybe if we click open the item menu and rotate like this, you can see the grid and everything rotating around with the moon and the camera from that view, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the moon to earth is nice, but I think it would be a bit more interesting if we had more planetary bodies. I'm also going to hide the default camera for right now because it's just kind of in my way. What if instead of this being the Earth and this being the moon, this was the sun, and we duplicated this? So I'll duplicate that, right click to snap it back to where it was when I duplicated it, S to scale. And then I'll click on this. And what if this was our moon and this was the Earth? Actually, I think we'll scale that a little bit closer, something like that. What's great about everything we set up is that those parent bonds and the locking carries over to everything we duplicated, so we can just quickly click on circles and be able to rotate them like this. Of course, we don't want our moon rotating around the entire sun, so let's shift select both of these. And I'm going to go into a side view here, and I'm going to move this to the center of the Earth, and then I'm going to scale that down. Of course, it's no good that I already scaled that moon down so little, so we'll have to scale that back up a bit. So now we have these easily rotatable orbits here. But we're definitely going to want this to move, the moon to move when the Earth moves. So let's select the moon's circle, shift select our Earth, and press Control P again, press Object. And now if we click on our big rotational circle, it will carry our moon around, or what's our Earth now, and we're still able to rotate the moon individually as well. Press Control Z to get us back where we were. All right, so I'm not going to make the entire solar system, but let's see if we can get as far out as Saturn. So if this is the Earth and the moon, let's grab all this stuff, scale it up a little bit, then duplicate it, right click to snap it back to the location where we duplicated it from so that we can scale this down. And I don't know how many moons Mercury has, so let's just say 2 maybe. We'll shift select these two, duplicate this, right click to snap, S to scale, and maybe and click on that circle and maybe rotate it a little bit of an offset. Maybe the same for this one here as well. And then we'll select all this, duplicate it again, right click to snap it back, S to scale, so that we've got, whoops, I meant to say Venus here, not Mercury. And of course, in addition to having the right number of moons, all our planets are perfectly to scale to NASA specs. We've got Venus, Mercury, with their definite 2 moons each. And let's go ahead and get some Mars. Scale that out. Of course, when we scale all of that out there, it means we're going to have to scale the planet down. Something like that. Go ahead, duplicate, right click to snap it back, S to scale out again. Gonna need some hefty amount of room here for Jupiter. So let's click this, this, S to scale these all out. Hey, what do you know? Jupiter's way bigger than the sun. Let's grab all this. Okay, so to fix this, what we're going to need to do is switch our transform pivot point to individual origins. And then I'm going to just select all of my planetary bodies here. And what I'm going to do is scale them down. And since we have scale to individual origins, they're not scaling towards each other. When I scale, they all scale inwardly towards their own origin point. So we can get this to something much more reasonable. Like that, I suppose, is fine. Once again, this is all perfectly accurate down to the millimeter of how the solar system is actually aligned and the sizes and everything. Okay. I want to make Mars a little bit more equidistant between Earth and Jupiter. And now we can afford to make Jupiter maybe a little bit bigger. We can change our pivot point back to medium point because we don't need to scale towards individual origins anymore. Select Jupiter, press Shift E to duplicate it, and then S to scale this out. And so we can at least get as far out as Saturn. Saturn is pretty close in size to Jupiter, but I believe it's a little bit smaller. And we'll scale Saturn's moon, which I do know offhand that Jupiter has, I think, 79 moons. We're not going to make that many, but we will give old Jupe there a few more moons. But let's make some rings for Saturn. So to do that, I'm going to first press Shift S, snap my cursor to selected, Shift A, under mesh, add a circle, S to scale this out just a little bit, then tab to go into edit mode, E to extrude, S to scale, press A to select everything, duplicate, right click to snap what I just duplicated back to where it was so that I can scale it out like this. Then I'll alt select this outer loop here and scale it out a little bit bigger. A to select everything, D to duplicate, right click to snap back. And we'll scale that out a bit. And there we've got some, tab to go back into object mode, got some very basic rings. Okay, so back in the view tab, in our stored views add-on, our names here, I'm pretty sure aren't accurate anymore. Let's see, which one is this? This one is Moon to Earth, which is incorrect. So I'm going to come here and delete Earth to Moon, and you can see here that the camera is parented to this here, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that as well, and we'll make some new cameras. Okay, so we definitely want the Earth to the Moon, so I'm going to jump to our Earth here. And we're going to get it looking at the moon. New camera. Okay, good. So we can go ahead and rename that Earth to Moon. Then we can zoom in on our moon and make a nice new camera. Call it Moon to Earth. And test those out. Earth to Moon, Moon to Earth, nice. Then we definitely want a Martian cam. So let's make a camera from Mars looking towards the sun. And we'll say new camera. And in the outliner, we'll rename it to Mars cam. Then we'll make one more from Saturn because you got to see those rings. We'll make one from Saturn's moon. And we'll say new camera. Rename it to Saturn's moon. Now we have a nice set of cameras to jump through in our solar system. Okay, let's get these cameras parented to their bodies so that when we move these bodies around, the cameras don't go flying off. We can easily select the cameras by pressing the buttons here in the Stored Views add-on. So we want that one, then we want to shift select the Earth, Control P, object. Then select this camera, shift select the moon, Control P, object, and we can hop to our different ones. We got the Earth cam, the Mars cam, shift select that, Control P, object, moon to Earth. I know we already got that one, Saturn's moon, and shift select that moon, Control P, object there. And I know these amount of moons is not accurate, but we have to at least add a couple more moons for Jupiter because it's got so many moons. So let's duplicate this, right click, S to scale, and open up the item menu so that we can click on the circle and offset these rotations a bit. Then I think I'll just straight up select both of these, the circles and the moons, duplicate all of them, right click, scale them again, and maybe scale this one more inwardly. Okay, so not quite 79 moons, but better than nothing. And let's scale Mars a little bit. Let's make this a bit more cinematic by switching into rendered view. I'm in Eevee here. So let's go to the World tab and change the color to black. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this point light, click on its data tab so I can see all of its inner guts. And point is actually what we want. We don't actually want a sun. Okay, first let's disable the shadow value so it doesn't show those harsh geometry edges. Of course, we could clean that up with some subsurf modifiers on these, but this is just a quick example situation. And I'm going to click on the sun. I'm going to give it a material, and let's press new, and change the emission to white, and crank that emission value up some. And of course, we need some bloom. So let's head over to the render tab, press bloom. Now we've got some bloom. Looks pretty good. So ideally what I would like to do is move this point light into the center of the sun because the bloom from this emission is going to get way too high if we try to crank this value up high enough to reach these planets? Or is that light affecting from within the sun? I think it is. Actually, I think that might be fine to have the light within the sun, the point light. I didn't think that would work unless we set up some transparency stuff with the sun's material, but it appears that might be the case. So let's see if we crank this power up to, let's say 100,000. Whoa, that definitely works just fine. Okay, that's way too much. So 50, 1, 2, 3. And 20,000. Okay, cool. So we've got some light all the way out to Saturn here, which is what we want. All right, let's head back into solid viewport shading. So my intention was to animate some of these moons and planets first and then duplicate this out, but I forgot to do that. So rather than make you watch me animate every one of these, I'm going to show you how to animate a few of them and until you get the basic idea, and then we'll jump cut to having all of these animated. So if we were to animate Mercury here, we would just want to select its orbital circle, click on item, so we have so we can adjust this value here. And I'm going to bring open my animation section here a little bit. And I'm going to switch this view to show seconds and zoom out a little bit so I understand what it is I'm looking at a little bit better. Let's press I to insert a keyframe. Then let's move this down, say 10 seconds, and rotate this all the way around to 360. Press I again. So now we have a rotating Mercury. But what good is that if we don't have some rotating moons? So let's do that as well. So I'll click on one of these moons and I'll press I to insert a keyframe. And I'll move this down the same distance, but we'll make it rotate around the Mercury many more times than 360 degrees. So 1080, which I think is 3 times. And we'll press I to insert a keyframe. And so this moon should rotate around Mercury 3 times in the time that it takes for Mercury to make it around the sun. As you can see, that's going on there. Pretty sweet. And we'll say that this other moon of Mercury has a longer rotation period. So we'll press I here, bring this back to 10 frames, and we'll only say 720. Tap I. And so these will be rotating at different speeds around Mercury as Mercury rotates around our sun. So let's take a look at that in rendered view. How about from one of our cameras? How about from the Mars cam? Oh, there we can see Mercury on its way around the sun. Pretty sweet. Cool. Okay, I'm definitely not going to make you watch me do that for all of these. I meant to do that first. Had I have done that first and then duplicated these, it would have been much easier to simply offset the keyframes of each one of these to make them a little bit different rather than animating all of them. But what are you going to do? So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I went ahead and animated all these moons and planets a bit. I saved Saturn for last because I wanted to mention that I forgot to parent the rings to the planet. So be sure to do that if you don't want to leave your rings behind when Saturn goes moving. And to kind of give you an example of what I meant about how I could have animated the whole thing first and then duplicated everything. So here I've got this moon of Saturn, which I've animated. As you can see, it starts to move as Saturn moves. But rather than create a whole nother moon and then animate it by hand or whatever, I can just select these two things here and duplicate them, right click, S to scale. And then what I can do is, since these keyframes were duplicated along with this one that I had already animated here, I can just offset this a little bit so that its rotation doesn't look quite the same as the other moon, and there's some variation there. And then, so you could just do that with all of these from the beginning and save a lot of work. All right, so we've done all this work of creating a solar system. Let's check it out. Let's switch to the rendered view and let's turn off the visibility of viewport stuff and click back in the view tab, and in our stored views, here we can check out our various views, which look quite lovely. You know, I think I probably will go back and add subsurf modifiers to each of these bodies because they look so rigid here. But let's press space and play the animation, and we can jump to different cameras as this animation is going on. Mars cam, Earth to moon. Not a lot going on there. Moon to Earth. There you can see things spinning out of control. And we've got some adjustments we would probably want to make. I think everything's spinning a little bit too fast. I think a good idea would be to select everything, and then I'll grab all the animation points to where they are starting out at frame 0. And I'll press A to select everything, S to scale, and then press 2. And that scales my animation out by 2. And so now that I've done that, I can press G to grab and remove the animation back to where I had moved some of the frames before frame 0 for an offset effect, basically. And so let's check that out again. Space to play, jump into our different cameras. Ooh, that looks nice. That looks really cool. Moon to Earth. Saturn's moon. Pretty dim out there. Ooh, nice. It's cool to be able to jump to these different views, but what if you wanted your actual rendered animation to be able to move to these views at specific times? That is the purpose of these camera markers. Okay, so now all we need to do is figure out which times do we want to be in which locations in the solar system. We can see what things look like from the Earth to Moon cam. You can see there's a little bit of activity starting out in the beginning, so maybe that would be an interesting part to start out the animation. So we could press our marker button, and this puts us in that camera. But say maybe by the time we get to second 2 or 3, not much going on. So let's check out somewhere else. Ooh, looks very nice over on Mars cam. So let's add the marker there. So we got checking out Earth to the Moon, then over to the Mars cam. It looks so much better since I slowed that down. Probably could slow it down by increasing the length of the animation even more. Or we could just do the lazy thing of skipping to a different camera before the animation starts looking crazy, right about the 5-second line. So where do we want to be from Mars? Saturn's moon, maybe? Moon to Earth? Ooh, Moon to Earth looking good right there. So let's add a marker there. And as you can see, we've got the nice names of our cameras here. So these camera markers double as regular markers in terms of, like, you know, understanding the action of the actual scene. Looks sweet. Moon to Earth, nice. And then right as it's closing out, I'd say it's actually, I think that looks pretty good. I think that might do it for the animation. Did we miss one? We did Oh, we didn't do Saturn's moon. We definitely got to get that. So Risette's going dark. We want Saturn's moon. And we'll put a marker there. And that will take us out. Ooh, nice little finish. We need to make this animation a bit long. The end of it's only 250 seconds, so we definitely need to make that longer. Since we made the animation longer, let's go to view and turn off only keyframes from selected channels so we can see all of our keyframes. And yeah, the animation, I forgot, we made it twice as long, so it's out to 20 seconds. Maybe we could adjust these a bit more. Bump, 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 bump. Ooh, that's pretty. And right there, we want somewhere else. I think Mars Cam again works pretty good. And let's see, I think that will take us out, and that'll do it for our 15 and some change second long animation. Okay, let's watch this one more time. I'm going to bring this back to 0, control space for full screen, and get rid of these menus, press space. Just watch this go. Got some nice camera jumping around, Earth to the moon, rings of Saturn, ooh. And then back to Mars to take us out. Okay, so if you wanted to render this, of course you can just go to render and render animation instead of render image. You could set up your output settings here on the output properties tab, the resolution, of course the file format. If you're looking to output an actual file you could upload to YouTube or something, you would want to switch this from PNG file sequence, which is typically the best if you're going to do post-processing. You could switch this to MPEG, or AVI JPEG is a pretty good one. AVI RAW is going to be, of course, a huge file that, depending on your computer, may chunk your computer along. And then you would just want to render your animation. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and quick little solar system building session on the stored views add-on for Blender. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, please leave a like, and tell me what you liked best about the video in the comments. If you managed to make your own animation, please do let me know about it, and let me know where I can find it to watch it in the comments. YouTube will often auto ban you if you put links in the comments, so you might have to be kind of crafty about like the name of your channel or website or wherever. But if you do this, I would totally love to see it. Like, I would super love to see it. You could post this on the forums at blendersensei.com or at blendersensei on Twitter, or the usual social media situation. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, one more quick thing I wanted to mention. So first, I went back and added subsurf modifiers to all these objects, and damn, do they look a lot better. The other thing is that there's definitely some camera settings you probably want to pay attention to before rendering this. Number one, you want to make sure that your clip end value is not at 100, which is what it was a second ago. So notice how we don't even get the sun in here anymore if it's at 100, so I like to bump that up to 5,000. It's pretty good. And I've also changed my focal length to this particular camera, which I'm going to use to probably make a thumbnail render, to 20 millimeters, because I love the kind of cinematic effect that has over the default 50 millimeters. So you can see the kind of difference there, although that does look pretty cool. So since we have all these different cameras, you'd want to make sure you updated all of those values. But just so you're aware of that, all right, so I'll see you later. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read the documentation for this add-on for anyone interested in listening to it so they don't have to read it. Stored views. Stored views has 3 modes of operation, depending on which the following are saved or restored. Save stored views to your blend file to easily have access to saved views later. Activation. Well, open up Blender and go to Preferences, then the Add-ons tab. Click 3D View, then Stored Views to enable the script. Interface. Located in the 3D Viewport sidebar View tab. View. And this is talking about the buttons that are listed in the add-on. View. Save multiple view locations for easy navigation between views. POV. Save point of view. perspective, and local modes. Camera to view. Move the selected camera to current view. New camera to view. Create a new camera to current view. Save current. Save the view or POV. Camera selector. Tools for camera selection and management. Camera. Make the camera active. Preview camera. Make the camera active, selected, and camera to view in one button. Add camera marker. Add a camera marker to help animating between cameras. Instructions. First, activate the user interface and storage by pressing Initialize. With the View button active, zoom, move or rotate the camera into a position you like. Useful setting up camera locations and modeling specific areas of a mesh. Or with the POV button active, change the user perspective or local views. Press Save Current to create a list of each stored view or point of view. You can move selected camera or create a new camera to the stored view. Useful for setting up camera shots to different views. The camera selector works in a similar way. Each camera is listed and you can make a camera active by pressing the camera icon. You can view each camera by pressing the screen icon and also add camera markers using the arrow icon, useful for setting up camera switching during animations. As all stored definitions are saved in the blend file, you can save the file and the next time you use it, the stored views or point of view will be ready. Thanks very much for watching, especially if you stuck around to the end of this video. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed, and let me know down in the comments below if you plan on using this add-on, if you think it would be helpful to you at all, if you've got some interesting ideas for use cases, stuff like that. That would be really cool to share with me and everyone else. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.